All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, April 7th meeting of the Placer County Board of Supervisors. We will begin with a flag salute led by Supervisor Euler. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Well, welcome to our telephonic meeting, virtual meeting. In order to protect the public health and safety of our citizens, our meeting is closed to the public this morning, and we will allow people to comment on public comment or on individual items through a remote call-in line. So if you'd like to do so, that number should be up on our screen. If not, it is 530-886-1800, and that will allow you to get into the queue for public comment or on an item. So when we introduce an item, if you have a comment, feel free to call in at that time, and you can be held in the queue, and then we'll take those calls one by one. All right, with that, we are going to move to the consent agenda. If the clerk will read the item, please.
All items on the consent agenda have been recommended for approval by the County Executive Department. All items will be approved by a single roll call vote. Anyone may ask to address consent items prior to the board taking action, and the item may be moved for discussion.
Any items that board members would like to remove? And I don't think we have anybody from the public. So we will go ahead. Have a motion?
Move approval of a consent.
Motion by Wygant.
Second.
Second by Gustafson. Roll call, please.
Wygant?
Yes.
Holmes? Yes. Euler? Gustafson?
Aye.
Gore?
Aye. Thank you. We'll move to public comment. And this is an opportunity for people to speak on an item and address the board on issues that are not on our agenda. We ask that people keep their comments to 3 minutes. And as a reminder, the board is not permitted to take any action on items addressed under public comment. So with that, our clerk is trying to make sure there are people in the queue, so give us just a moment as people call in. And there may not be, but we'll give it about, there's a 30-second delay, so we need to wait a few minutes. There we go. Thank you for calling. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Ann Bowler.
Good morning, Ann. Feel free to make your comments.
Oh, it's my time right now.
Yes, we are. It's your opportunity. If you want to speak to the public comment item, you are welcome to go ahead. This is the time for public comment.
Can I call back in a little bit because I'm not quite ready? I was just imagining there was going to be a long line.
Okay, yes, because you wanted to talk about
COVID-19.
All right, that's fine, Ann. Thank you. Why don't we have you call back in a moment? Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
And anyone else?
I think we're safe to move on.
What's that?
I think we can move on.
All right, it looks like we don't have any other public comments, so we'll close public comment. Our first item, timed item, is at 9:10, but I am guessing we may not have any department item folks ready to go, and we've got 4 minutes.
Supervisor and CEO updates.
We could do that. Great idea. That's why you have a clerk who's been with the county a long time, doing this for a long time. So let's move to board member and county executive reports. Any reports from board members? None? Euler? Cindy?
Yes.
Yes, please, go ahead.
I wanted to report to the rest of the board. I don't know if you've been tracking all of the issues and community responses we've been getting, especially from the North Tahoe Truckee region, relative to people being concerned that people from out of the area are violating the stay-at-home orders, both from their restrictions in their own home communities as well as to the Tahoe area. Our staff have been doing a tremendous job of education. Dr. Sisson did provide a letter to homeowners that we distributed to over 15,000 email addresses through partnership with other organizations, meaning the county doesn't have everybody's email address, but what we did was reach out to HOAs, homeowners associations, the PUDs, and other special districts who do maintain larger email blast lists that are specific to that area, and reached out and asked people to be reconsider their trips to Tahoe as an escape, especially given the high prevalence, high rate, the disproportionately high rate of COVID cases we have in the Tahoe, Truckee area. So that has seemed to be effective, yet I continue to get bombarded, and I just wanted to make you aware of people who are requesting things like checkpoints, local IDs to shop, local IDs to even come into the basin, which of course is very problematic. Last Friday, El Dorado County provided an order from their health officer suggesting that both visitors and second homeowners should not come. And I've had a number of requests that we need to take ours from her letter to an order. I have spoken with a number of folks in El Dorado County. There is no enforcement of that any more than we are enforcing with any sort of checkpoints or with our local law enforcement. I confirmed with Todd yesterday about this, and we can cover more. He may be covering more of this in the COVID update, but I just wanted to let you know how incredibly responsive staff have been, how much the PIO's office, we've been contacted by radio, TV, people from our area are reaching out to out-of-town television stations and radios, stations, and I've done a number of interviews, and just wanted to make you aware that it continues to be a grave concern for folks up there. I think the best advice I keep trying to share with our public is the only thing you can control is what you come in contact with and how you can take those steps. It doesn't matter if it's your neighbor or your friend, a healthcare worker, an essential worker. You could contract this virus from anybody, and this animosity toward out-of-towners doesn't occur to me when I'm down here and I go to the grocery store. Nobody questions, do I have the right to be there? But up there, that's happening. And there's concerns about our hospital district being able to take care of people if a lot of folks were to get ill at one time and stay in Tahoe for treatment. So I think there's real concerns. I'm not trying to diminish those concerns, but I think folks are looking to us, and you may hear this additionally from others, that they want us to do more in enforcement, and we can talk with Todd about kind of the response from the sheriff and other law enforcement officials. I did speak yesterday with the hospital district and the town of Truckee, and whether they were hearing the same things and what their thoughts were. The town of Truckee is not, Karen, going to do anything further on enforcement, not request checkpoints, and that's my understanding of El Dorado County. So again, it's trying to educate the public, do our very best to urge people when they are in Tahoe to socially distance and to restrict their trips out of their homes to essential purposes. So that guideline is good for all of us wherever we are. And I just wanted to let the board know how they're dragging the media into that as well, and requests are coming many a day to do more in that regard.
Cindy, can I ask a question? Do you have any information on the medical capacity up there?
The hospital, somewhere between 31 and 44 beds. Yesterday on a call, the hospital administrator told me 44. Dr. Sisson will probably know that when she's on. As of yesterday, they had 4 cases hospitalized, and they have 9 ventilators. They'd like to get 3 more. But he also said there is a challenge with having adequate staff trained to provide those services at Tahoe Forest. It's a great hospital for critical care needs and emergency care needs and orthopedic needs, and let's see, everything I've taken my kids and husband for. And birthing, yes, OBGYN. But, dealing with these long-term sorts of, this is a first for us to be in a pandemic like this. And they are considering requesting additional emergency capacity to be set up there, so.
Supervisor Euler?
Yes, just to follow up on that, just, I guess out of curiosity, you and I are approximately 6 feet apart, our appropriate social distancing, right? Mm-hmm. Can you read my address? So if I'm in Safeway up in Kings Beach and somebody approaches me and wants to see my identification to prove whether or not I belong there, the only way for them to verify it is by violating the social distancing rule, thereby creating more of a liability.
Are you asking?
It's just an observation. I
don't mean, Supervisor Euler, this is a time of fear for so many people, and they really are acting out of fear and requesting any help. And that's why I continue to try to educate people to focus on themselves and their loved ones and not to look at what others are doing. I mean, when we drive down the highway and we see people speeding, we don't feel, they are taking our lives at risk when they're speeding, but most of us don't call 911 on every speeder that passes us, right? And so what can we do to help them use the tools that we've given and the guidance we've given?
I understand. There are practical applications to these kinds of things, and I just wish that folks would understand that we are doing everything within reason that we can do to slow the spread. And our board members are practicing it by virtue of us sitting here in this empty chamber conducting
Bringing
a
our
board
masks.
meeting. And so everything practical is being done.
And I think the good news, too, is that we've actually, Dr. Sisson has been ahead of what the governor has done and other jurisdictions have done in almost every step of precautions. And so I really want to commend Placer County staff and Dr. Sisson for that, but we'll get to her report in a minute.
Great.
So, thank you.
Well, thank you for the update. And it's just as we call Dr. Sisson, I guess it's just a great reminder. We have personal responsibility. We can all take steps to protect ourselves and our friends and neighbors by social distancing, by wearing masks when we're out in public, when we're around people. But I just appreciate the work that our residents are doing to take care of one another. I think that's probably the most important thing. We don't have to walk in fear, but we just need to be safe and do the best we can to encourage one another. We don't need to do public shaming. We need to encourage one another positively to take positive steps, which I think is really important. So with that, we're going to move to our 9:10 timed item, and this is our COVID-19 update by Dr. Amy Sisson, and we've got her on the line.
Dr. Sisson, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, go ahead.
Can you bring it closer?
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board for the opportunity to provide an update on the coronavirus outbreak in Plaza County. Since I last provided an update to the board 2 weeks ago, the number of confirmed cases of coronavirus disease, or COVID-19, has continued to rise. 2 weeks ago, there were 24 cases of COVID-19 in Placer County. As of this morning, there are 115. The number of cases is doubling approximately weekly. 3 Placer County residents have now died of COVID-19. Of our active cases, 7 are hospitalized and 3 are in the intensive care unit. Several have a poor prognosis and are likely to die from their disease. You've likely heard much discussion about outbreak models and disease projections over the past 2 weeks. In entering our local data into publicly available models, I've seen just how inexact the science of modeling is. The output of a model is only as good as the inputs and the assumption that the model is based upon. And there's so much we still don't know about this new virus. Using one set of assumptions, one model predicts that the number of hospitalizations in Placer County will peak in May, and using another set of assumptions, the same model predicts a peak in August. As we all know from our own lives, predicting the future is hard, and that is exactly what these models are trying to do. One thing that is true in every model is that the number of new coronavirus cases, hospitalizations, and ICU patients in Placer County each day will continue to rise to a peak and will then eventually decrease again. The height of that peak and the timing of the peak are different in every model. Models being used by state-level public health, models being used by state-level public health officials predict a surge that will exceed the healthcare system's capacity in May. Models from the University of Washington are much more optimistic, predicting a peak in mid-April that is within the healthcare system's capacity. Our public health team is taking the approach of planning for the worst while hoping for the best. What does such an approach of planning for the worst look like? It starts with hospitals implementing their healthcare surge plans. These plans involve increasing the number of total beds, ICU beds, and ventilators in our hospitals. One of our hospitals has a 7-phase plan that would more than double the total beds available to treat 6 people. Planning for the worst-case scenario also means planning for what to do if this expanded hospital capacity still isn't enough. This might involve providing home care consisting of oxygen and telemedicine to moderately ill patients, or sending patients to the planned 400-bed field hospital at the former Sleep Train Arena in Tahoe, or even setting up another field hospital at a Placer County fairground site. Again, we don't know if these options will be needed, but if we don't get them ready, we won't have them available as an option should they be needed. The virus that causes COVID-19 is a challenging enemy. Since my last address to the board, we have learned something new about the virus, something that makes it even more challenging as an enemy and more difficult to control. We now have evidence from China, Singapore, and Washington State that people can spread the virus up to 3 days before they develop symptoms. It may also be possible that some people, perhaps even half of people who are infected with the virus, never develop symptoms, yet are still able to spread the virus. We can no longer assume that people who feel fine aren't infected with coronavirus. The best way to control a virus that can be spread by people without symptoms would be to test everybody to determine if they're infected. Unfortunately, our testing capacity remains limited. At the moment, we don't have the capacity to test everybody with symptoms, let alone everybody, period. There is testing hope on the horizon, with a rapid test from Abatement expected to be available in Placer County in the next week. Sutter and Kaiser's laboratories are already able to provide test results in as few as 8 hours. An antibody test was just approved by the Food and Drug Administration. So while there is reason to be hopeful, widespread testing remains a goal, not a reality. Our current reality is that our best tool to slow the spread of the deadly coronavirus is to stay home. By staying home, we reduce interactions that can provide an opportunity for the virus to spread. Staying home is hard. Humans are social. We don't just want to interact with others, we need to. But for the time being, we must settle for in-person interactions that are limited to our household members and virtual interactions with everybody else. We long to return to our pre-coronavirus lives, to normal. I get it. The economic devastation caused by staying at home is very real. Yet we must continue to stay home. If we do not, each person infected with the virus will transmit the disease to more people, and the total number of cases will increase faster than the healthcare system can keep up with. People who might have survived had an ICU bed and a ventilator been available will die unnecessarily. A minute ago, I talked about how the outbreak models are based on assumptions. One huge assumption is that people stay home. If we don't stay home, the peak will be higher and it will be sooner. How are we doing at staying home? Not great. A company called Unicast has analyzed how Americans have been doing about staying home based on cell phone mobility data, and the results are disappointing. The U.S. as a whole has earned a C-. California as a whole is only doing slightly better, earning a C. Placer County has also earned a C. This C represents a 40 to 55% decrease in distance traveled and a 60 to 65% decrease in non-essential visits. We have to do better than this. We have to stay home as if our lives depended on it, because they do. In addition to staying home as much as possible and staying 6 feet from other people when we do have to leave our homes, last week I announced a new recommendation for all Placer County residents to cover their faces when leaving their homes, using either a homemade cloth mask, a bandana, a scarf, a gaiter, or some other item that covers both the nose and mouth. The purpose of these face covers is to protect others from the person wearing the mask. The recommendation is an extension of my prior recommendation for sick people to wear a mask. Only now we can't use symptoms to tell who is infected with the virus. All of us could be infected and not know it yet, so we all must cover our faces. This is a community-oriented act. Many members of the public are contacting my office and wondering what they can do to help our community during this challenging time. You can start by wearing a face covering when you have to go out. Your face cover protects me, and my face cover protects you. In no way is a face cover an invitation to go out more often. Staying at home remains the best way to protect yourself and others from coronavirus. On March 19th, I issued a directive for Plaza County residents to shelter in place at home, except for essential activities. This directive went into effect on March 20th and ends on April 10th. Since that time, California's governor issued an executive order for Californians to shelter in place that continues until further notice. The existence of a county-level directive and a statewide order that are similar but not identical has been a source of confusion over the last 3 weeks, especially as it relates to essential activities and essential businesses. To reduce confusion, I intend to issue a health officer order later this week that will preempt the statewide order whenever it is more stringent. The order will also clarify much of the ambiguity about which businesses are considered essential. The order is still under development, but you can expect clarifications to be provided about parks and outdoor spaces, outdoor recreation, funerals, construction, landscaping, and real estate. Until then, I urge residents and businesses to focus on the intent of the directive, which is to stay home as much as possible, rather than on exploiting loopholes.
Dr. Sisson?
Every loophole exploited is a hole in the wall that is holding back coronavirus.
Dr. Sisson?
Holes and the wall falls down and coronavirus spreads widely. If you are an essential business, you still need to adhere to the 6-foot distancing requirement, for example, as well as stop any non-essential aspects of the business.
Dr. Sisson, do you have just a moment? I think you're on speakerphone. If you can pick up the handheld phone, that might make it easier for us to hear.
How's this?
Oh, that's a lot better. Thank you.
Okay. So the world is facing a challenge greater than most of us have ever faced. The coronavirus pandemic has given the entire world a common enemy. Please do not forget that the virus is the enemy, not each other. If we're going to get through this challenge, we must be kind to one another, help our neighbors, and share our resources. We are stronger together, and we will get through this if we stick together. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Sisson. It looks like we've got questions from board members. Supervisor Euler?
Yeah, I'm curious in regard to the grades that you just read in California getting, I think you said a C, C minus, something along those lines. It was a little hard to hear.
I'm sorry, could somebody repeat the question? I can't hear.
Oh, because it goes through there. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Deficiency in our system. If you want to go ahead. My question is in regard to the grades, for the California grades. Who is issuing those grades based on observations of whom, where? California from, San Francisco to Siskiyou County is very different. I'm just curious as to who issues these grades and where they're doing their observations to collect the data so as to issue a grade, and based on what kind of criteria?
Yeah, so the grades are based on cell phone mobility data, and they're provided by a company called Unicast. And they're doing this for the United States as a whole, for each individual state, and for each county in the United States. And they are publicly available on the Unicast website. You can just Google Unicast scorecard, and you'll find them.
Any other questions, Supervisor Euler?
Oh, no, that just raises a whole host of other questions about what our data is that's being gathered on us and our movements and all the rest, but that's conversation for a different time, I suppose.
Well, all right, Supervisor Gustafson.
Yes, Dr. Sisson, again, if you didn't hear my earlier remarks, thank you for being so proactive in many respects and helping us address concerns of the public. My question is, how are our hospitals doing? Can we let the public know how they're equipped at this point and if there's additional resources they need?
Sorry, the question was, how are our hospitals doing?
Yes, and in that I'm also including the one in Nevada County that serves us up in Lake Tahoe as well, all three.
Yes, thank you for the question. So we have 3 hospitals in Placer County itself. We have Sutter Auburn Faith, Sutter Roseville, and Kaiser Roseville, and all of them, as I mentioned, are implementing their healthcare surge plans. And they are actually doing quite well. They've been training and planning for this for years through our hospital preparedness program, and they are doing a great job of implementing those plans. They are, as you've been hearing on the news, somewhat limited by the availability of personal protective equipment, or PPE. But my understanding is that all of our hospitals now have at least 1 to 2 weeks supply of personal protective equipment, which is great news. They have all implemented universal masking orders in their facilities to protect everybody who enters the facility, including their personnel, as well as any visitors. But visitors are being widely limited at this time to reduce the input of coronavirus into the facility. All staff are being screened for symptoms such as fever, cough, or shortness of breath, and if they are ill, they're not allowed to enter the facility. In terms of whether we have reached a healthcare surge at this point, we have not. Our 3 hospitals in Placer County, and I'll talk about Tahoe in a minute, they all still have bed availability of approximately 25% of the total beds. This is their baseline beds, not even their surge beds, are all still available. As of yesterday, I believe there were a total of 36 or 37 confirmed or suspected COVID-19 patients in those 3 hospitals, which only accounted for approximately 8% of the total beds. So we have plenty of room in our hospitals right now, which is good news because we are expecting that to change moving forward. Speaking specifically of the hospital in the Truckee area, as you mentioned in your comments at the beginning, we have much more limited healthcare capacity in the eastern side of Placer County. There is one hospital in Truckee, that's Tahoe Forest Hospital. They're a critical access hospital. They have only 25 beds as their baseline capacity. That includes 6 ICU beds. They have a plan to surge to approximately 44 beds, but as you can imagine, that's still a very small number of beds. There are additional hospitals in that area on the Nevada side, but it still remains a very limited healthcare system capacity in Tahoe, which is what prompted our notice to second homeowners. In terms of the current capacity, I believe as of yesterday there were only a handful of confirmed or suspected COVID-19 patients in Tahoe Forest Hospital, but there have been many individuals diagnosed with COVID-19, both on the eastern side of Nevada County, with I believe 22 cases on the eastern side as of yesterday, and approximately 10 Placer County cases on in the Tahoe area. So we do have concerns that just with those confirmed cases at this point, if they were all to become more seriously ill, that alone would essentially maximize the capacity of Tahoe forests already. So we have been working very closely with the state, with Nevada County, to work on helping the hospital to surge, as well as identifying additional resources that could potentially expand the healthcare capacity in the Tahoe area. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Sisson. I do know that in a conversation late yesterday afternoon with the hospital CEO, he suggested they could use 3 more ventilators, and of course are looking forward to any reagents for the quick tests as soon as they're available, the rapid tests. So any assistance, both Placer and Nevada County. I know Nevada County is the lead there, but they do serve majority of our Placer County population up there. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions from board members at this time? All right, we will open this up to public comment. And we've got a number of folks on the line for public comment. So we'll go ahead and move forward. Remember, you all have 3 minutes for public comment. And we will, because we have a number of people on the line, move this forward at 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Michael Hamby.
Good morning, Michael. Go ahead, please.
I'm at 6905 Mystery Creek Lane, and
Michael, I'm going to interrupt you real quickly. If you are on a speakerphone, please take it off speakerphone or speak very clearly and loudly into your headset, please.
Yes, ma'am. I am not on a speakerphone. I'm calling referencing the Sears Winery project that indirectly abuts up to my property.
Better.
And what I'm finding fascinating is I was listening online, and this project seems to have been accelerated in its trajectory for a meeting on April 16th. I'm listening to Dr. Is her name Simmons?
Dr. Sisson.
All the board members there, the urgency and the complications and the disastrous effects of the coronavirus. You guys are all in a meeting, it looks like. I would like to be at that meeting right now to express my concerns regarding the Sears project. But I am not allowed to. If this is such a serious issue, why are you guys having your meetings with all you folks there and the public isn't invited? Number 2, on the Sears Winery project, excuse me, my voice, how did this become such an essential matter that the public has not been asked to attend and must only do so verbally through phone? How did the Sears project, why did we forget about all the environmental impact reports? How did this project become such an urgent matter that it must be voted on immediately? I wish for this project to be delayed till it becomes essential. At this point, it is non-essential. And the public needs to be able to participate fully in all the investigative reports associated to the Sears Winery project. Specifically, the previous unpermitted aspects of what was done on that property, including over 4-foot fills, the removal of legacy oak trees, et cetera, has been remediated and addressed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We'll move forward with additional public comment, in particular about the update of COVID-19. So next comment, please.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Charlie Tiff.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm in receipt of a letter from the Planning Commission for an administrative review permit that's going to be taking place on April the 16th. That's scheduled to be a interactive over the internet meeting.
Charlie, may I interrupt you for a moment, please? We
Yes.
are actually taking public comment specifically about items about COVID-19. We closed the original public comment, and I know you've got questions about this one item on the Planning Commission. We are
Okay, I was going to get to my COVID-19, so I will do that right
okay.
now.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry. This morning we listened to Dr. Sassone. We've also heard the governor that we are to be only doing important things, and I do not see that this administrative hearing scheduled on the 14th is essential. And anybody on the list that we as members of this community, we cannot reach the Ag Commissioner, we cannot reach the Fish and Game for our investigation because they are on COVID-19. They are non-essential for these administrative hearings. So this whole process of COVID-19 has put a damper on our input, and then there's going to be this electronic meeting that this letter comes out in such fine print that my neighbor next door can't even read it. And he doesn't have the IT to participate in this meeting. So I'm asking that this be delayed until public comment in a normal fashion can be available for us to be at a meeting.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Next caller, please.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Emily Ann Ward.
Thank you, Emily. Go ahead, please.
Hi. So I just wanted to discuss the county Board of Supervisors response to the COVID-19 crisis. Myself, along with others, are organizing around a set of recommendations from citizens in the county that's received over 130 sign-ons, and I'm going to go ahead and read that now. The COVID-19 pandemic has begun to affect all residents of Placer County, placing their health in jeopardy and even leading to deaths in some patients. The current shelter-in-place order issued in an attempt to interrupt the virus's principal method of transmission has resulted in many people being without work. And many Placer County residents face challenges in meeting their basic needs and those of their families and dependents, including food insecurity, child care, lack of access to basic hygiene, safe and reliable utilities and services, paying particular attention to essential service workers and healthcare workers who will need support, and in the best of situations are now facing an increased lack of these services. A group of ad hoc concerned Placer County citizens are calling on the board, the Placer County Board of Supervisors, to serve Placer County residents by becoming partners with state and federal representatives to identify opportunities to work with utilities, banks, telecommunications, and lenders to provide individuals protection against service interruptions and evictions due to non-payment from COVID-19 loss of income until the state of California has publicly stated that the COVID-19 pandemic has subsided and emergency declaration lifted. We are asking you to immediately begin to connect with medical and sanitation experts on how to provide a clean and safe environment for our unhoused neighbors. We must protect the health of everyone in the county to ensure the cleaning stations for the unhoused, as well as the expansion of safe housing and shelters with proper social distancing that meets CDC guidelines. Newsom has just signed an executive order to eliminate the restriction of local jurisdictions to utilize the funds from the Homeless Emergency Aid Program for cleaning stations, expansion of housing, and shelter services. We're asking for the jail population to be reduced in order to protect against the spread of the coronavirus through the county jail, and create a plan around making sure that inmates receive proper health treatment and much needed social support services upon their release. Also limiting arrests so that fewer people are in jail and less transmission is possible to follow CDC guidelines. Immediately suspend all fines, fees, and restitution collection attempts until CDC has publicly stated the COVID-19 pandemic has subsided, including parking and traffic tickets. Work with nonprofits and school districts on a comprehensive plan around the distribution of essential basic needs and safety supplies for all Placer County citizens free of charge, and publish the information widely to the public. Work with all utility companies in Placer County, including gas, propane, electric, water, sewer, trash, and internet providers, to waive late fees and avoid citizens being cut off from essential services due to non-payment until the state of California has publicly stated the COVID-19 pandemic has subsided and emergency declaration lifted. Finally, we're asking to immediately begin to create a plan for future elections to be conducted 100% on a vote-by-mail basis, beginning with the November 2020 election. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next comment, please.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Ann Bowler.
Good morning, Ann. Go ahead, please.
Great. On March 11th, my husband and I were planning to go to New York to see the site and to support Granite Bay High School's drama teacher who was pitching his amazing play, Rank the Musical, to Broadway producers. On that same day, my family was still hopeful that the Flower Farm would have its best year on record with more weddings and numerous successful businesses running well. On that day, the folks at the Gathering Inn were still struggling to house the Placer County's homeless, which was about 200 people. That week, life turned on a dime for us here. Due to the COVID-19 virus, Broadway was ordered closed, the Flower Farm was told that no events over 10 were allowed, and we shuttered our cafe. Yet folks at the Gathering Inn were still serving around 200 people. I'm telling you these stories to point out the fact that COVID-19 has shattered many dreams already, but my concern is for what lays ahead. Will we still have just 200 or so homeless in our county in 6 months, 9 months, or a year and a half until a vaccine is available? Will we have far more? We will have far more unless we make some real significant moves right now. I'm particularly concerned for the already homeless, but also for people like my employees who don't make that much money. They may have a small savings account, but it's only going to last a matter of weeks or a few months. What are we going to protect those people so they don't end up homeless? Clearly, these are days that are not business as usual. It's going to take bold leadership by each of you supervisors. We need to be fluid. I agree with all the recommendations that my friend Emily just read to you. In addition, I urge you to create a task force whose only job is to react to the current needs of our county people. I urge you to look at the county staff to either furlough people whose jobs have dried up or reassign them to help mitigate problems caused by COVID-19. That will save us some money, more than likely, which we could use for many of these projects. I urge you to support programs that will help people that are going to be battered because they're in homes. The numbers have already gone up for domestic violence. Let's put money in places like that. I urge you to talk to state and federal governments and take advantage of each and every program they are offering and ask for programs that we need, like perhaps to slow our tax needing to pay our property taxes.
Thank you, Annie. Can you wrap up, please?
Sure. I urge you to cover your own faces and encourage everyone to cover your faces, including grocery store staff and county sheriffs. I saw them both yesterday. None of them were covered. I urge you to work to get tests for everyone so we know who has the virus. Thank you. I applaud some of the many things that are going on right now, like Jim Holmes' letter in the paper yesterday and other things that we worked with the Salvation Army. I know you're doing many good things and are working hard. These are tough times. But let's be fluid and get this done. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Debbie Gordon.
Go ahead, Debbie.
I'd like to read a letter that I submitted to Governor Newsom yesterday to his COVID-19 line. Dear Governor Newsom, thank you for taking swift action to protect the health of Californians during the COVID-19 emergency, and in particular, for your March 22nd declaration and shelter-in-place directive defining essential work exemptions. I'm contacting you on behalf of residents and neighbors in Placer County regarding the actions of Placer County supervisors and planning departments, which we believe are not in full compliance with your March 22nd declaration, nor are they acting in the best interest of the community. The Placer County Community Resource Development Agency in particular oversees development projects, most of them applications submitted by private individuals and firms for building or zoning changes. These projects do not fall under the same essential work exemptions as critical infrastructure or public works, as identified in the March 22nd declaration. However, under state law, they require CEQA and environmental review, traffic analysis, mitigation, and public comment, all of which takes time and full public participation at each step of the process. Several pending projects will impact my own neighborhood, but under COVID-19, all public hearings have been moved online, and some are calendared for review or public hearing within just the next 2 weeks. Unfortunately, the now oversubscribed internet is limiting public participation required under the Brown Act. Our neighborhood internet failed 3 times today when I was working online. Additionally, many residents and neighbors are elderly, not tech savvy, and some would simply prefer to attend a live meeting. Residents have submitted several requests to the county in compliance with your March 22nd health directive to postpone all planning review and hearings for non-essential work until the current emergency is passed and the shelter-in-place directive has been lifted. As you will recall, the first recorded COVID-19 death in California occurred in Placer County just 1 month ago. We respectfully seek your assistance to immediately reaffirm for the supervisors of Placer County and the agencies and jurisdictions within their authority that private project plan review is not exempt from the March 22nd declaration, and that in compliance with the state's health and safety directives and with the spirit and intent of the Brown Act, such plan review should be postponed until the COVID-19 statewide directives have been lifted. We will be happy to provide any details required to support this request. Thank you. Respectfully submitted, Debbie Gordon, on behalf of multiple residents and neighbors in Placer County, District 4.
Thank you for your comments. Next comment, please.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Cheryl Berkema.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Hi, good morning. My name is Cheryl Berkema. I'm a Placer County resident for over 20 years. Thank you for having my comments. I wanted to thank Dr. Stisson. I think that's a shining example of preparedness, outreach to the community. I would also like to thank Supervisor Gustafson. I read your district letter, and I think that type of proactive communication is key for residents. I would also like to talk to the efforts that are being done. I agree with Annie, who just spoke previously, that a task force is needed. I think as a program manager, the time is now. I think that Placer County, especially unincorporated, has unique challenges. Our CEO stated that 90% of businesses are small businesses. The not only health effects of the COVID-19 virus, but the economic effects are upon us, and the time for action is now. I think we need a plan in place, a plan to address essential business, not non-essential. I urge you to remove all non-essential business from the calendars of everyone on the board and to focus on essential business. Essential business is the health, the economic well-being, the preparedness. So where is the disaster preparedness plan? We are in a disaster right now, and it's moving forward at a rate that we can't even predict. So I urge that task force, and I urge you to look at the things that really are going to matter. How are people going to eat? How are people going to get food, medical supplies? The rural nature for sure is a challenge, and I understand that the board is really up to that. We just need to shift our focus, I think. So I appreciate anything that you can do. The residents are willing to help. I also appreciate your focus on applying to foundations, the one in Tahoe and the Placer County Foundation, but I urge you to put some money from Placer County immediately into those foundations. Those folks can distribute it where applicable, but I think millions of dollars are needed now to start that outreach. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next comment, please.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Kathleen Crawford, and I live in Roseville, California. I am calling in support of the ad hoc committee resolution for action. I am particularly in favor of the county creating a task force of citizens to help provide some sort of additional public response on public comment on this issue as we go forward. I believe this will take a period of time, and we will need continued pardon me, I have seasonal allergies, and will take continued time for the public to be able to make comments. And I would also recommend that you look into having the County Office of Emergency Services coordinate responses countywide, including the cities and towns, and the nonprofit agencies that are all involved in responding to the issues that we brought up with the ad hoc committee resolution. There are very vulnerable populations in our community, and they have very differing needs, and the county could coordinate a very strong response. I'm sure some people will say, well, what about the governor's office or the federal government? And yes, all of those will be impacted, but the County Office of Emergency Services is a coordinating agency at the local level, and I would encourage our public officials to be very proactive in meeting our unique community needs. I would hope that this is something that you would consider taking up, and please put this on the agenda for your April 21st meeting for additional comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Madam Chair, if I may briefly, perhaps while the next call is queuing up, I don't know, maybe we can let our CEO take a minute to explain the things that people are asking us to do that we've been doing for the past month through the Office of Emergency Services. That's already been going on and continues to go on because it's clear that a number of callers aren't aware of what we're already doing along these lines.
Megan, can you just ask that person to hold, please, while we get a brief update from our CEO?
Thank you for calling. If you give us just a moment, we'll let you know when it's your time to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor. One of the, I think there's a lot of comments have been made today, and there's probably will be some more that'll be coming on the call here. We're doing a lot of work around coordination, specifically with our Emergency Operations Center. We brought this online approximately 3 weeks ago now. Each day we have daily updates with all of our law enforcement providers, not only within the county itself, but all of our municipal partners as well, both fire and police. We have a lot of coordination that comes out. We're dealing with messaging, hopefully in a unified manner amongst each of these jurisdictions. And, there's a lot of efforts that are going on around making sure that people are safe. And this is also in direct coordination with our HHS Department of Health, our Health and Human Services group, and our public health directors on this call on a daily basis as well. So a lot of efforts are taking place that are you may not be hearing about, but I think it's good to know that operationally we're really structured appropriately to address this unprecedented pandemic, actually. And we have the necessary and essential staff within the county actually doing the daily work, whether they're at the office in some cases, but in many of them they're working from home. And then we have our law enforcement. I would touch on the jail component because that was addressed briefly as well. We have been continuing to look at how do we manage the jail appropriately in concert and in participation directly with our court system. That jail is being managed and we're looking at identification to keep the appropriate people where they need to be and those that we may need to move out safely in the community. We're doing so. So there's a lot of efforts that are going on in this space as well. I'll leave it at that, and maybe if there's other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Quick question, Supervisor Holmes, because we still have public who want to comment.
Jeff Brown going to give us an update about the homeless situation? I know that we were renovating one of our barracks to house another 100 homeless, and the Gathering Inn has been taking a lead on that as far as getting that facility ready. I think they worked over the weekend trying to get it ready. So.
And I'll touch on this as well, and Jeff may be able to add. We did identify a barrack up at the DeWitt campus. It'll house about 65 additional homeless residents, and we're modifying that barrack for a temporary shelter. So from the housing standpoint and the homelessness standpoint, we are addressing it not only in Auburn, but also there's been conversations with the city of Roseville where we also see the homeless and just larger concentrations there. I know the city is working in the same manner to address locations. So, this is an important topic and one we want to keep people safe, and part of that is having places for them to reside.
And we've also located a hotel that can house some of the folks that are suspected or COVID-19.
That's correct. We've identified a property up in Applegate as well. And we do have a number of hotelers that have expressed interest in partnering with us. I actually had 2 hotels in Roseville reach out yesterday, and Jeff and our Human Services staff are following up. I will mention we also have been in direct contact with the grounds, our fairgrounds operation in Roseville. They are more than willing to provide any additional space or support that we may need in the event that there's any overflow. So I believe we've really captured and been proactive about setting up the infrastructure in place as we near and hopefully get near a kind of top escalation of the cases that we're seeing. But I think we're prepared appropriately, at least in this county, to address that.
So as far as the task force, we have every department head is involved in weekly meetings. I know you're on the phone all the time checking with all of them, so I think that's a pretty good task force when we have every department head involved in this, from the treasurer down to the animal shelter.
Yeah, that's correct. And in fact, I would call our EOC being the task force in and of itself because of the departments and the coordination that's happened there. And it's not a weekly call; it's actually a daily call that we're having. So, including weekends, we're having these calls in the middle of the day. So. There has been definitely a concerted effort, and I do want to assure folks that are on the call and those that are hearing that I think we are positioned really well from an emergency standpoint. I think there'll be some conversations about the future and what we do to address it both economically and keeping our residents safe. But right now, I think we've established a good foundation to move on.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just real quick, and also up in Tahoe, Grand Lebacan has stepped forward, and I know Dr. Brown is working with them to make sure that there's least space available for positive COVID-19 patients there as well. I know the public has a lot of concerns about this. I guess the takeaway here is how we communicate this to our public, because they're not getting the message of the services we are providing, and maybe we can talk about that later after we hear the rest of public comment.
Yeah, I want to reiterate, looking at our website has a great deal of information, both resources and information what the county is doing. Please utilize that resource because it is very helpful and has a lot of information. If you don't have access to an internet, please identify there's phone numbers. You can access us. We'll get you the appropriate information via the phone if that's necessary.
Great. Thank you, Todd. Appreciate that. And I think we'll go ahead with public comment. I think it is really important for folks to know that the county is prepared to address disasters. That's what we do, and we are doing that right now. Go ahead.
Please state your name for the record.
Are you there?
Oh, yes, me? Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Jackie Hoyt. I'm calling in regards to a couple issues. One being the Sear Winery project and the effect that it has on the community with the pandemic that has been placed upon us. I feel that this project has been ramrodded through, and I don't understand the urgency of it. This is a non-essential project. It's not a hospital. It's not something that's needed for the community immediately. And many of us in the community, I live right next door within 200 feet of the proposed project. The issue that we have is that we haven't been given enough time to do our due diligence and to be able to contact other communities and departments. The Board of Supervisors is ignoring all our requests, and all we're asking for is to delay this project until we can all appear in person. I'm a very tech-savvy person, and I've had a really hard time this morning with this meeting. We have very bad internet. Our speed is about 5 versus 20 at other places. I've been locked out. I had to reboot. I've been trying to get in on this one and been on hold since 9 o'clock. So a lot of people living around that project are elderly that are not able to handle that. They don't have the internet. They can't handle rebooting. We're just asking for us, our voices to be heard in public meetings, just like any other normal meeting that happens. This is not business as usual. This is a really hard time for many of us that are affected by this project. And basically, that's all we're asking, that if we can extend that meeting and postpone it until we can all attend in person.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Marilyn Jasper.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
Good morning. Thank you for taking COVID-19 seriously. First, if Plaza citizens do not comply and the pandemic worsens or even hints of worsening, we could easily be put on mandatory lockdown. Doing everything we can now, albeit on somewhat a voluntary basis, is vital. Also, we urge the county to stop, let's say suspend, all commission or meeting agenda items where action or voting is on non-essential items. This is especially important on items where members of the public have voiced negative impact concerns. COVID-19 requires isolation, and if not handled responsibly, it can hinder and greatly compromise our very democratic process. Yeah, essential items should be heard, but so many upcoming agendas seem to have non-essential items, and I'm talking about Board of Supervisors, Planning Commission, zoning administration, where public input is compromised, if not entirely blocked. And this is with items that are not essential, that have citizen concerns. And last, I appreciate what I'm seeing, that people are wearing, some of you are wearing masks, and I'd like to urge all county staff, but especially you elected and other elected officials, to wear those masks and gloves, whatever, to set models, because this is a new era, and frankly, there are a lot of people who are just having problems processing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Next comment, please.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
AC Mills.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, I just wanted to speak in support of the previous speakers about the group of concerned Placer County citizens' recommendations for action during the COVID-19 crisis. Emily Ward, I believe, read it into the record. I wanted to speak in particular to the eviction moratorium and rent freeze. I think this is crucial to ensuring that when we come out the other side of this pandemic, that Placer County is the same place it was, or at least somewhat similar from when we started. I'm particularly thinking about all the small businesses that may end up having to close down because of their loss in revenue. They're operating on really small profit margins and are barely making it every month. So ensuring they're able to stay in their place of business ensures that we come back to a Placer County that doesn't look drastically different from when we entered this pandemic. I'm also thinking about a lot of the residents of Placer County that are barely able to make rent every month and could be forced out of their home due to this pandemic, which would inspire a new crisis right as we're coming out of the current crisis. So I would strongly encourage you to consider an eviction moratorium and a rent freeze to protect our businesses, our small businesses, to protect our residents, protect the most vulnerable people in this county. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next caller, please. Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Brenda Zimmerman.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Hi there. I live in Kings Beach, and I have written a few letters to the board to the state. We are concerned about deeming construction essential or non-essential. It is my belief that construction in the Greater Lake Tahoe area should be deemed non-essential. It is second home building. We are not building hospitals up here, and it seems impossible to operate under 6-foot distancing. We just heard from the Dr. Sisson about these concerns. There was a public meeting from the town of Truckee in Nevada County last Friday, and Greg Griesbach, the director of the building department in Nevada County, got up and told everybody, kind of went it's cool, bro, we can make it work, was sort of his vibe, for lack of a better description. And then came out a little while later and said he had no idea how to help anybody get the appropriate hand washing or other, sanitation requirements on job sites. If anybody has worked in construction before, we've seen that there's hand washing is hard pressed to be found on a regular basis, never mind during a pandemic. my request is that everyone take this very seriously and acknowledge that workers are coming up to the Lake Tahoe and all over Placer County, from Reno, from Carson City, from Loyalton, and otherwise, and that is not working within our stay-at-home directive. It is also an extreme waste of our PPE if we're giving this out to contractors that are working on second homes and non-essential projects. And I urge you guys to do the right thing and protect the health of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Lisa Boshaw.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. My comment is I'm simply asking that all non-essential business votes or action be suspended or postponed during this crisis until all community members can attend or be present to be heard until the COVID-19 shelter in place is lifted by the governor.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next caller.
I believe Lisa was our last caller.
All right, go ahead, please. Or
no more holding. We're good to go.
all right, no one holding. Thank you, everyone, for your public comment. Appreciate it and appreciate your patience as we have to do this via the telephone. I think Dr. Sisson is still on the line, so she may want to just wrap up with a few additional items that we haven't hit on that Todd Leopold didn't hit on as far as efforts that are currently being made to help protect our public health and safety. So if we've got Dr. Sisson, is she there?
Dr. Sisson's still here. I can barely hear you.
All right, go ahead, Dr. Sisson, if you have any other follow-up comments based on questions that were brought up that we didn't get addressed.
Yeah, I mean, let me speak a little bit to the efforts that our Health and Human Services team has done to address the homeless and unhoused population in Placer County. I have Jeff Brown who can also speak to this, but I will say that this is a cross-discipline response. We have public health, we have the adult system of care, we have human services, and we are working around the clock to identify housing options for the homeless. We are expanding our shelter capacity. We have secured motel, hotel, and other beds. And we're also looking at trailers to create non-congregate living environments for the homeless. I would like to make an appeal to business owners in Placer County, especially of motels and hotels, to open up those facilities to people who are homeless and who have COVID-19. We have seen an outpouring of support to house first responders and healthcare workers, for example, but there's a lot of resistance among businesses to expand their availability to the homeless and to COVID-19. And this is the time where we really need them to open up their arms and embrace every member of our community.
Great, thank you, Dr. Sisson. We really appreciate the work that you and your team, actually all of our staff, our OES team, our public health staff, our first responders, public safety. People are working really hard during this time, and I want to say thank you publicly to all of our staff who are working really hard. And we are going to work together to stay at home and make sure that we take care of ourselves and one another. So thank you for the update. Supervisor Gustafson, did you have a comment?
I just, a couple of the other comments that the public raised, I just want to ask staff again. The governor's order covers many of these as far as evictions and those sorts of things. So I just want to make sure that our public is aware we don't need to take redundant government actions if those are enforceable. I know people have asked a lot about construction, and that is certainly under the governor's order as a protected service right now. But I just want to make sure people realize again, that we get the public word out on some of these areas that we're being asked about that are already governed by other higher authorities than Placer County.
Yeah, actually, if I could respond to that, that is true. There was a point in time where local jurisdictions were taking on resolutions and ordinances regarding evictions, but then the governor came out with his executive order, which basically said, put a moratorium on that and made it unnecessary for local actions to occur. You know, I'd also point out that it's very difficult for us to post this because at some point, sometimes the governor is literally issuing executive orders every other day. Trying to post that to keep up is a constant challenge. It's a constant challenge for us to keep up with where he's at. But a lot of these things have been taken care of by the governor. He issued an executive order a few days ago regarding a series of different fines and having to apply for licenses and such, including the DMV, and staying any penalties regarding those. So the governor is addressing a great deal of these. I'd also point out that yesterday the Judicial Council issued emergency rules regarding default judgments. And in these emergency rules, which stay in effect as long as the governor's executive order is in effect, one of them deals with the fact that there can be no entry of defaults on an unlawful detainer. Those would be evictions for renters. There's been a stay put on foreclosures in terms of filing foreclosures with the courts. There has been a stay of trials for at least 60 days. There has been an order, except for certain of the more serious felonies or crimes, there has been a zero bail put into effect. So these Judicial Council, again, this just came out yesterday. I haven't even had a chance to read them, but a lot of this deals with the issues that the public was raising about, stop foreclosures. The county can't stop a foreclosure, but the court in this instance has stepped in and said, you can't go forward to perfect a foreclosure in court until this is over. So various different arms out there are handling a lot of these issues that they're raising.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful, Karen. Appreciate it. All right, with that, it looks like we will close that item. Thank you again, Dr. Sisson. We are going to move forward to our 9:30 timed item, which is the recruitment process for our district attorney. And Kate Leopold. Oh, wait, sorry, Kate Sampson. I must know a Kate Leopold in another world somewhere. Thanks, Kate. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Kate Sampson with your Human Resources Department. It's my pleasure today to provide you with a report summarizing the recruitment process for an appointed district attorney. By way of background, the former Placer County District Attorney Scott Owens began a new 4-year term on January 7th, 2019. Owens subsequently retired from service effective December 30th, 2019. The district attorney seat remains vacant pending appointment of a successor by your board. On January 14th, 2020, the board considered the process by which to appoint a new district attorney who would serve the remainder of the term ending January 2nd, 2023. The board directed the Human Resources Department to initiate a 30-day recruitment in order to identify interested and qualified candidates. The recruitment was posted on January 17th, and to qualify, candidates needed to demonstrate minimum qualifications of being at least 18 years old, a California resident, registered to vote in Placer County at the time of appointment, and admitted to the bar in California. Candidates also submitted resumes and written responses to supplemental questions summarizing their qualifications and philosophy on criminal justice issues. By close of recruitment, 12 applications were received. During the recruitment period, the county held meetings with stakeholders representing 8 agencies or organizations throughout our community, including law enforcement and other criminal justice partners. The purpose of the meetings was to solicit feedback regarding the services provided by the District Attorney's Office and to provide input on desirable characteristics of an appointed district attorney to assist the board in considering all of the candidates. In order to assess the candidates, your board met 6 times to deliberate. On February 25th, 2020, the board met to review all application materials, identified candidates to be interviewed, and required background checks to be conducted. On March 9th, the board met to further discuss the interview list. On March 10th, the board met to craft questions for the interviews and identified additional written supplemental questions to be completed by interviewees on topics such as the use of incarceration, evidence-based practices in achieving public safety outcomes, risk assessments and split sentencing, and impacts of addiction and mental health in the criminal justice arena. On March 24th and 26th, the board met to interview 8 candidates, reviewed responses to those supplemental questions, and deliberated. On March 27th, the board met to conduct a second interview with 1 finalist and extended a conditional job offer pending completion of several pre-employment steps and subject to final vote of the board. On behalf of your board and the people of Placer County, I'd like to publicly extend sincere appreciation to all of the candidates who invested significant time and effort throughout this extensive process. At this point, I recommend your board take any public comment regarding the appointment process for the district attorney position, break for closed session to consider appointment of a district attorney, and contingent on your board's direction, I recommend you direct HR regarding the retention of recruitment records of unsuccessful candidates in order to protect their confidentiality and or any additional steps necessary to complete the appointment process. And I'm available for any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Kate. We have some comments, and before I take board member questions or comments, if there are public comments, people can start calling in now and queuing up. And no, I thought I had Supervisor Euler.
Just a comment, observation, if I might. One of the, I don't know if you call it a benefit of having been around a little while is you've seen this once or twice. And my first recollection was when County Clerk Recorder Mary Ann Holz retired back in around 93. The county did not do a recruitment, ended up appointing Jim McCauley, who then served as Clerk Recorder Registrar of Voters for close to 3 decades, I guess. When Earl Corrin retired, the county did not do a recruitment, appointed Janine Windeshausen, who has served for 20-some-odd years in that position. When Bruce Deere retired, the county did not do a recruitment. We appointed Kristen Spears, who has served now over a decade in that position. When Kathy Martinez retired, we did not do a recruitment. We appointed Andy Sisk, and Andy has served very capably in that position. And of course, when Ed Bonner retired, the board did not do a recruitment and appointed Devin Bell. And then when McCauley retired, the board did not do a recruitment and appointed Ryan Ronco. In my experience, now this being the 7th appointment that I've seen come before this Board of Supervisors for a countywide elected position, this is the first time we've ever done a recruitment. And we recruited extensively. We opened it up to in-house candidates and folks from around the state. In fact, we had applications from out of the state. So we engaged in a process unprecedented in Placer County history in order to take the time that is, I think, required of filling this important position. And so I appreciate the work that staff went to assist the board in doing this recruitment, and just wanted to put that out on the record that we went to literally unprecedented lengths in an effort to make sure that we had the most qualified candidates in front of our Board of Supervisors for this board to ultimately make whatever decision gets arrived at later today.
Thank you, Supervisor Euler. Any other comments from board members?
If I could, I appreciate not only what staff did, but so many of the public reached out and shared their thoughts and perspectives, from retired judges to retired law enforcement. I mean, I had a phenomenal amount of input, and being relatively new to the job, I just really appreciate the wisdom of so many who I sought out and who sought me out to provide insights that were really unbiased and more about the qualities we should be looking for, and I found that very helpful, in addition to all the work that you did, Kate and Todd, with interviewing various constituent groups too. And what an outstanding pool of candidates we really have had through this process.
Great, thank you very much. All right, do we have public comment? Yes, we do. So we will open up public comment, and we'll ask people to keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. And we'll take the first comment, please.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Michael Lazina.
Go ahead, Michael.
Good morning. I've worked with Morgan Geyer for years, including most recently at an executive management level. I just want to say, as a coworker, as a friend, and as a resident of Placer County now for over 20 years, I'd just like to say to the Board of Supervisors, Morgan is an excellent selection. He's a person of the highest integrity, intelligence, innovation, and leadership ability. It's been an honor working with him. We're going to miss him greatly in Sacramento, but I'm excited to have him as the DA of Placer County. We know he's going to do an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Next comment, please. Right, and I will clarify that the board has not yet made a decision, and we're taking public comment. Go ahead, please.
That was our last one.
That was our last one. All right. So with that, we are going to close public comment, and we are going to adjourn to closed session. So our county council will read that.
The board will now adjourn to closed session to consider appointment of a district attorney. Supervisor Euler?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may. As my colleagues know, prior to my wife assuming the position of Assistant Director of Child Support Services for Placer County, she spent 6 years in the District Attorney's Office. During those years, developed professional and personal relationships with 5 of the applicants that are before the board, and so for that reason, I am going to be recusing myself from this vote. I put the trust of the residents of District 4 in the hands of my colleagues as you make this important decision. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. We will now adjourn to closed session.
The board met in closed session to consider appointment of a district attorney. The board has voted 4-0 with one recusal, that being Supervisor Euler, to appoint Morgan Geyer as the district attorney. This concludes the report out of closed session.
Great, thank you very much. Next, we'll move to item 4A, which is district attorney. We have 2 items. One is we'll go ahead and read those, which is the first item is contingent. Oh, well, let's see. I'm looking at this and
Actually,
I can't read it.
we can revise this slightly as you have moved to and voted to appoint. The next requested action would be to instruct Human Resources on the disposition of the applications of the non-successful applicants. Human Resources recommends that they dispose of those for the privacy of those non-successful applicants. If the board wants to consider that and make a motion, we'd appreciate it.
Motion by Gustafson, second by Wygant. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And one abstention.
And the next item would be the swearing in of the district attorney.
Wonderful. So we are very pleased to announce Morgan Geyer as our next district attorney. We have so appointed him. And so with that, we are able to swear him in right now. We've got Judge Horst here to do that. So let's go ahead and do that, and then you can make any comments if you'd like to afterwards, Morgan, and make sure you stand 6 feet apart from one another, please.
Thank you. Before I do the distinct honor of swearing Morgan Geyer in, I know that we have a skeleton crew here today, but I'm also glad that this is being live streamed for the public for this important occasion. So this past Friday evening, I received a text message just past 8 p.m. from Morgan Geyer, and it stated, quote, "Hey there, hope all is well. Sorry to bother you late on a Friday. You happen to have a moment to chat tonight or maybe sometime this weekend?" So Morgan and I have known each other since he was in elementary school, and I was in junior high school with his older sisters at St. Albans in Roseville. He grew up down the street from me on Morningside Drive in what was then called Loomis. Of course, Supervisor Euler was also on that very same street as well. And I used to make extra money. I spent a lot of time at the Geyer house. I made extra money. I was hired by his parents to do yard work, clear out ivy and whatnot. And I grew very fond of his parents over the years. I wish your mom was here. I know that she is watching right now. I want to say hi to Kathy. Mrs. Geyer, hello. I also want to note that I'm sure your dad is here in spirit, and that I know he would be very proud. So Morgan and I then became reacquainted when he served as an intern in the Placer County District Attorney's Office. And we kept in contact through the years, served on the Legislative Committee at the CDAA, California District Attorneys Association. I've had the pleasure of watching him rise as a prosecutor, as an accomplished prosecutor and leader in the Sacramento District Attorney's Office. He and I, every year, present at the Career Day at Jesuit High School. And we have recently been members together of the Anthony Kennedy Inn of Court, which is an organization that promotes professionalism, civility, ethics in the practice of law. So when he texted me out of the blue on Friday night, this past Friday night, I hadn't actually seen or heard or had any contact with Morgan for at least 6 months, if not longer. And after we spoke on the phone, he gave me the news. He immediately apologized, and he said, I'm really sorry. I talked to you earlier. I didn't want to put you in an uncomfortable or bad position during this whole process. He knew ethically that I could not get involved or endorse anyone, and he thought it was best simply to have no contact. He expressed his regrets to the other judges on the bench that he knew that he similarly had no contact during this whole time. I share that because it's a short illustration of the character of the person, the district attorney, the new district attorney of Placer County, who you have chosen. This board has chosen for this county a person of integrity and of high ethical standards. A necessity for any public servant, right? But particularly for the district attorney, whose mission is not simply to secure a conviction, but to seek justice. Mr. Geyer, you are taking this oath during extraordinary and unprecedented circumstances, and that's somewhat of an understatement. Amidst the fear, anxiety, and uncertainty that we all face, we need calm, steady, measured stewards of the public trust. And though our current crisis has exposed our own vulnerabilities, it has also highlighted our common humanity. Now more than ever, we realize the need to work together for our common goals. Such times create opportunities for great leadership. I know you will rise to the occasion. Mr. Geyer, welcome back and welcome home. Thank you. With that, please raise your right hand. Please repeat after me. I, Morgan Geyer.
I, Morgan Geyer.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
To the Constitution of the United States.
To the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or purpose of evasion.
Or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully.
And that I will well and faithfully.
Discharge the duties.
Discharge the duties.
Upon which.
Upon which.
I am about to enter.
I am about to enter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Judge. And Mr. Geyer, please feel free. Mr. District Attorney.
Thank you very much. And to the board, I want to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation for the dedication that you have shown in this process in selecting candidates. It was clear from the beginning that you took your obligations very seriously and passionately for what was best for this county. And I must say I am humbled and honored to be standing before this board right now. I would like to thank wholeheartedly Judge Horst for his kind words and his friendship and support over the years, and just how meaningful it is for me to be standing here having been sworn in by Judge Horst. He represents what is truly the best and the brightest on our bench, and I look forward to working with him in the very near future. And second, I just want to say it is good to be coming home. I have always loved this county. I have always loved the Placer County District Attorney's Office. It is an odd feeling to be standing with your dream job. My job was to return to this office, and here I stand. And I stand with a extremely talented office that is dedicated to keeping our community safe, pursuing justice, and doing what is right above all else. I am very excited to be leading this incredibly talented team and to move forward in an environment that makes the Placer County DA's office the best in the state and the finest place to work in the county and the state. So with that, I want to express my gratitude and thanks, and I am ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Judge. Appreciate it. We've got Mr. District Attorney. We've got an excellent team that works in our district attorney's office. They do a great job. They are committed to the public safety, and I know with your leadership as you work with them, you all will continue to do a great job providing the service to our public, keeping our community safe. So look forward to the work that you do with your team in the future. So
look forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was one very good piece of good news for this morning. With that, we're going to go ahead and move on to our department items, and we will call our, the Community Development Resource Agency. So we're going to go to item 7A, which is the Hazardous Vegetation Abatement Update, and we'll make a call in to Tim Wagner.
Tim, are you there?
I am.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, good morning, Chair Gore and members of the board. Tim Wegner, Deputy Director in SEGRA, here to introduce a very important ordinance that helps the county prepare and better defend against wildfires. Seemingly, about every 6 or 7 years, the county revises its hazardous vegetation ordinance to better align with the needs of the community. Staff is here again, 7 years since the last update, with recommendations to this ordinance. Today, the county and its fire entities address defensible space through a combination of county, state, and fire code requirements. In an effort to develop one defensible space framework, streamline the process, and provide enforcement efficacy, staff are here today to introduce a hazardous vegetation and combustible material ordinance for your board's consideration. To give some background, improvements such as homes are required to have a 100-foot defensible space around them in accordance with the Public Resource Code 4291 and the California Fire Code. At times, a portion of the required defensible space is on an adjacent parcel. For this reason, in late 2007, the board adopted 5491B, the county's first hazardous vegetation on unimproved parcels ordinance. This initial ordinance covered the eastern county, only to be expanded to the entire county in 2013 by Ordinance 5705B. These initial hazardous vegetation ordinances were implemented to complement California Public Resource Code 4291 and the California Fire Code defensible space provisions by providing continuity across boundary lines. For example, if a neighboring parcel's home is 30 feet from the side lot line, the adjoining parcel will have to assist by providing the remaining 70 foot of defensible space, for a total of 100 foot. In instances where the owner does not assist, the violation can be abated. For unimproved parcels, violations are abated after a 30-day notice if no hearing is requested. Abatement costs are recovered from the owner, or a special assessment and lien process may be initiated. For improved parcels, a citation may be issued for a violation after three Superior Court convictions in 1 year. The parcel can be abated and cost recovered. This is not a very effective method in a condensed fire season. So back to today. As it was previously noted, the current county ordinance has been in effect for 7 years. Lessons learned, a changing fire landscape, as well as feedback from county fire districts about challenges with defensible space enforcement, resulted in a series of focus group meetings over the past year and a half. From these meetings, it was determined the county could, 1, better address improved and unimproved parcel defensible space standards through one resource rather than through a combination of resources. And we've done that in the proposal today by identifying hazardous vegetation standards for both improved and unimproved parcels, maintaining the same 100-foot defensible space standard with an exception for ornamental grasses, plants, and vines. The second thing was to identify fire hazards requiring mitigation outside the traditional 100-foot defensible space area that contribute to fuel loading and wildfire spread. This is reflected in the proposed ordinance today. Section 9.32.160A8 states, remove any hazardous vegetation constituting an extreme fire hazard as determined by the enforcement official. It was also determined the proposal could streamline the enforcement process for expedited decisions and compliance. For this reason, we propose shifting appeals from an administrative hearing body to an administrative hearing officer to reduce the hearing timeline and the cost. And last, provide an alternative administrative citation, hearing, and fine process for noncompliance when abatement is not an option due to higher fire risk or other reasons. The proposal as presented today authorizes the issuance of administrative citations and fines for noncompliance. Hearings will be conducted in the same manner as current administrative citation hearings are handled for land use violations. Staff further recommends the establishment of a cost recovery process that includes administrative costs and abatement cost recovery. And the proposal updates the lien process to largely mirror the recent amended process set forth in Placer County Code Section 17.62160E, the county zoning ordinance. So our land-based liens are handled the same way. Should the board adopt the proposed ordinance, staff recommends entering into memoranda of understanding with fire districts, allowing said districts to enforce the standards identified in the proposed ordinance. The proposed ordinance, as presented, is subject to the customary closing arguments. Staff recommends a 5-minute recess. Staff will return to the meeting in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. A typical hazardous vegetation abatement process is a 5-step process. 1, a complaint. First, a written complaint must be received. Non-compliant parcels may be identified by a community member who files a written complaint, or Placer County Fire representatives, or a fire district personnel. After that, a site visit is conducted. After a complaint is filed, the site visit is conducted by Placer County Fire or a fire district, depending on the area and resources available to determine if a violation exists. The third step is the compliance period. If a violation exists, non-compliant parcel owners receive a notice of violation and order to abate, providing 30 days to correct the violation and 15 days to request an appeal hearing. 4 is the abatement step. If the violation remains after the 30-day notice, and if the owner has not requested an appeal hearing, the county's co-compliance team will abate the hazard. The hazard is abated by county contracted work crews procured for this purpose. Abatement is conducted to the satisfaction of Placer County Fire or the responsible fire district. And the last step is cost recovery. The county's co-compliance team will pursue the cost recovery administrative and abatement costs from the parcel owner. If the costs are not paid, staff will request the board approve a special assessment and lien on the parcel to recover those costs. The program will be resourced through cooperative agreements with the districts in conjunction with current county co-compliance officer involvement, or it may be approved through the normal budgetary process. In the end, condensing the county's defensible space standards, streamlining the compliance process, and expanding administrative remedies would constitute significant efforts in helping the county prepare for the next fire season. I really want to give a special thanks to Chief Estes with Placer County Fire and his team, all the representatives of the fire districts, Becky Regan and others in the CEO's office, Michael Perfont and County Council, as well as everybody else who helped the evolution of this important wildfire protection tool. My hat's off to you. With that said, I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the report, Tim. Go ahead, Supervisor Holmes.
Mr. Wigner, I just want to thank you for your hard work on this. I know it's been a process for quite a long time, and I want to thank staff that's worked on this as well. I see it's very well detailed in your staff report about what's going to happen next. So I just want to again thank you for the hard work that you put into this.
All right, Supervisor Euler.
Yeah, my questions go to the issues of surrounding folks that, for whatever reason, might not have the ability, whether it's from a cost standpoint or just their physical health. I know in my district there are a number of folks that have lived on larger parcels for a number of years, and they have a portion of their parcel they're able to manage and maintain or pay somebody to manage and maintain, but then they have a large portion of their parcel that's just kind of in the natural environment, if you will. And so when do we deem those portions that are just kind of left in their natural environment to be a hazard that requires abatement? And if somebody finds themselves, I'm thinking of my former neighbor who was 90 years old who lived on 10 acres immediately adjacent to me, who he wasn't going to be out there with a weed whacker knocking this stuff down, and unfortunately his income didn't allow him to have people coming out and taking care of this on a regular basis. So how do we handle situations like that?
Yeah, Supervisor Euler, I appreciate the questions. I'll start with really the broader question about how you deal with areas that might be outside of the 100-foot defensible space. Again, as I mentioned, there are provisions in the ordinance that allow the enforcing authority to determine those kind of areas, but some reasonableness is afforded here. Really what we're looking for is protection of the community and protection of dwellings and other improvements such as garages and other assets of that nature.
And Tim, I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean, just to clarify the example that I'm using, the home that I had at the time on Willow Valley Place was well within 100 foot of our shared fence line, and my wood deck was even closer to our shared fence line. And so not of any fault of his, because actually his home was constructed on his 10 acres before my home was constructed on my 2.5. Not any fault of his. My home went in within 100 feet of the fence line, and I, by virtue of this definition, I have created then an obligation upon him at that point, have I not?
Yes, you have. That's correct. If you look back even to the 2007 ordinance, the same obligation was applied to adjacent owners. We do recognize that there are some costs associated with what these defensible space provisions might look like and how those might really play out there onto the land. Many times we're hoping that the neighbors can work cooperatively. So in the situation that you described, where one neighbor's home is closer and requiring some defensible space on the adjoining parcel, our hopes are the neighbors will work cooperatively, and the neighbor that needs the defensible space could work again with his neighbor to try to accomplish that either through his own means, or maybe he could assist by paying or contributing to a payment with his neighbors, whatever that might look like. So we recognize there can be these impingements in places and time where it's difficult for the community to abide by these standards, although recognizing the importance of that in their own safety, the defensible space is a critical factor moving forward.
And just quickly in follow-up, is there an opportunity for us in these kinds of situations to possibly work with, whether it's the California Conservation Corps? I know that Sheriff Bell has folks that go out and take down weeds in some of our public landscaped areas. Is there an opportunity to maybe work with the sheriff's crews that go out and remove weeds from our medians to maybe prioritize some of these when these things arise?
I think that's a great suggestion. Many times co-compliance has a resource document that we provide to homeowners, a community-based volunteer groups that can assist with junk or hoarding and other types of violations that we deal with. And I certainly see an opportunity here, Supervisor Euler, as you're suggesting, maybe we develop a resource guide. We can work with RCD, with our OES, and try to determine if we can't develop some of these other volunteer groups or other bases that can come in and assist with the type of settings that you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Supervisor Gustafson?
Not a question. I wanted to repeat the comments and echo the comments that Supervisor Holmes provided, thanking staff for this, as well as Chief Estes and everybody that's been involved, Karen, with drafting this ordinance and reviewing it, making sure we get it right. Since I assumed this office, I have repeatedly met with folks that have dealt with their defensible space but see others ignoring some of these requirements, and despite being able-bodied and able financially to take care of it. And so I think the ordinance is a good step forward. I do agree with the idea of having a resource guide for those who may need assistance, for service clubs and others, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whoever might be able to go and help some elderly take care of their properties in those situations. So I think that would be a great augmentation to this for those who are able. We just want to give them that next urge to get out there and deal with their defensible space. It really is impacting people not only in wildfire danger but in insurance and renewals, and that's critical to so many in my district.
Right, thank you very much. All right, we do have, let's go ahead, we'll open it up to public comment, and we have Chief Estes with CAL FIRE on the line.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning.
Go ahead, you're on.
Okay, do you want me to mute what's being spoken about in the board right now?
Yeah, mute any audio that you're listening to it on. Just mute any of that.
Okay, and then just let me know when
you're good
they're
to go.
going to question me.
You're up now.
Okay.
Okay, Chief, you're ready.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. This is Chief Brian Estes, Placer County Fire Chief, and the Unit Chief for the CAL FIRE Nevada Yuba Placer Unit. And I appreciate the comments and appreciate a couple minutes just to echo the comments from Tim and members of the board on this ordinance. I think from my perspective as the Fire Chief, one of the things I wanted to mention that is really important is we have a really diverse fire service organization within Placer County, both on the east and west slopes of the county, and that consists obviously of the Placer County Fire Department, which covers a 575 square mile area, by far the largest geographical area in the county, and about half of that area falls in state responsibility area, which is covered under the Public Resources Code 4291 that Tim mentioned earlier, but about 40% of it is local responsibility area, which is not covered by the PRC, and that's similar to areas like half of the South Placer district in Supervisor Euler's district and others on the east slope. And I think the benefit of this ordinance is that it maximizes and brings all the fire districts, irrespective of their different challenges, together under one set of common objectives. And I want to applaud Tim and the staff at both CEDRA and the Executive Office in helping us bring all the fire departments together. We've had a lot of good communication with the special districts, and I believe this ordinance is going to give us all the ability to implement at our own accord. Some of the districts have the staff and the ability to be able to implement as a standalone, and others are going to be looking to maximize the efforts of county staff and district staff. And then for me as the unit chief and the fire chief, it's going to allow me to maximize our efforts with our state-funded inspectors and overlap that with the county ordinance. So I want to thank everyone's support. Everyone echoing some of the earlier comments from Dr. Sisson and the board about COVID-19. We're obviously really, really busy right now in a new effort for us as the fire department in a really close unified command with OES and the Placer County Sheriff's Office and HHS to work toward putting the citizens of this community into a better place in regards to COVID-19. But I would be remiss if I didn't think that that fire season is going to be upon us in a very short time, and I have to look at our efforts in both prevention and suppression in the upcoming months. So I appreciate everyone's support, and I'm certainly open for questions on the fire department side of the Hazardous ordinance.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate the input. Doesn't look like there are any questions from board members, so we'll just move to continue public comment. The next caller, please. I think he's our only one. And just a reminder for folks, if there are items that you want to comment on, make sure you call in when that item is being discussed by staff members. All right, with that, we will close public comment and move this back to the board.
Second.
We have a motion by Holmes and second by Gustafson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries 5-0. We'll move to item 8A. This is the Auburn Ravine Force Main Replacement Project and Construction Contract.
Brandon, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right, good morning.
Good
Take
morning,
it away.
Chair Gord and members of the board. This is Brandon Thurber, Associate Civil Engineer with the Department of Public Works, Environmental Engineering Division. Today I will be discussing the next steps in the Auburn Ravine Force Main Replacement Project and will be requesting the award of the construction contract. As a little background, Auburn Ravine Force Main was constructed in 1959 and is located in Sewer Maintenance District Number 1 here in North Auburn. Structural deficiencies were identified in the force main that requires the Auburn Ravine lift station to be operated at a reduced flows and pressures. The Auburn Ravine Force Main Replacement Project is needed to avoid pipe failures and to allow the lift station to pump at its intended design capacity. On January 28, 2020, your board approved the plans and specifications and authorized the solicitation of bids for this project. Since that board meeting, the Department of Public Works worked with the Procurement Services Division to develop bid number 20072 with an engineer's estimate of $2.2 million. A total of 18 firms accessed the bid documents and formal responses were received from 3 firms. Upon evaluation of the bid responses, Procurement Services determined that C&D Contractors Incorporated was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder with a total bid of $2,958,194. A bid protest was received on this bid recommendation, but that protest has been reviewed and denied in accordance with the purchasing policy. Therefore, in order to proceed, staff is requesting the following: that your board approve the award of competitive bid number 20072 and award contract number 001251 to C&D Contractors Incorporated of Nevada City, California, for construction of the Auburn Ravine Force Main Replacement Project in the amount not to exceed $2,958,194. Additionally, authorize the Director of Public Works or designee to execute contract change orders up to $160,409.70 individually and not to exceed $295,819.40 in aggregate. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. It looks like there are no questions from board members. We'll open this up to the public. And do we have anybody in the queue? No. All right. We'll close public comment and move it back to the board.
Second.
A motion by Holmes, second by Wygant. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Motion carries 5-0. And we'll move on to item 8B, which is the Middle Fork Project Fuel Reduction Management Program Phase 1 funding recommendations for 2020.
Brett, are you there?
Yeah, I put her outside just because I have to talk and it's gonna pick up.
You're on, Brett.
Take it away, Mr. Story. It's all yours.
Okay, Honorable Chairman and Board, this is Brett Story with the Department of Public Works. Today I'm here to request that the Board approve 3 grant agreements, each for $49,500, which is the maximum award amount, totaling $148,500 in support of the Fuel Reduction Management Program of the Middle Fork Project. When the county and PCWA began operations outside of PG&E, it was determined that this program, which is designed to support fire-safe areas around the project on private land, was appropriate, and therefore an annual portion of funding was set aside from the energy proceeds to assist local fire-safe councils and other agencies to perform fuel breaks. This program has 2 grant opportunities each year to fund strategic projects. One is it was awarded by now, and the other one is usually awarded by August. And since 2014, over $1 million has been granted to those agencies and shaded fuel breaks performed around Forest Hill and Auburn. This first phase of this year, there are 3 grants, as I mentioned. One is in the Auburn area. It's approximately 12 acres in the American River shaded fuel break. 2 are in the Forest Hill area. One is approximately 32 acres in the Todd Valley shaded fuel break, and the other is approximately 25 acres in the Ridgeview Road area for a shaded fuel break. And another $250,000 in funding from those agencies has been brought in to support that, as these grants can only support about 40% of the, and so a 60% matching funds is required. So with that, I'll answer any questions, and then hopefully the board will approve these 3 grant agreements.
Thank you, Brett. Looks like we don't have any questions from board members. We will open this up to the public and see if we have any calls in the queue. And does not look like it. I will bring this back to the board.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All right, motion by Gustafson, second by Wygant. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Brett.
Thank you.
We will move on to item 8C, which is fiscal year 2021 Senate Bill 1 fuel tax revenue project list approval.
Kevin?
Hello.
Hello. You're on.
Great, thanks. Good morning, Chair, members of the Board of Supervisors. This is Kevin Tabor, the Road Maintenance Manager for the Department of Public Works. This first item that I'll be presenting is asking you to adopt a resolution that adopts a list of projects for the fiscal year 2021 Sb1 projects. The current estimate of Sb1 funds that we will be receiving in fiscal year 2021 is approximately $8.6 million. And the project list and the attached resolution is required to be approved by your board for us to be eligible to receive the projected funds. This year we're listing 7 projects, a majority of which will go towards resurfacing projects, chip seal, microsurfacing, and overlay. The other projects provide for additional material for road maintenance crews to place, two slide repair projects in the Alta Colfax area, as well as some miscellaneous concrete projects for ADA upgrades, as well as some miscellaneous tree trimming countywide. So with that, I'll turn this over to your board if you have any questions of me.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Kevin. Any questions from the board? No questions from the board. And any calls in the queue? Public comment? We'll open it up.
None.
All right. We'll bring it back. And looks like we have some dollars to take care of road maintenance, which is a very, very good thing. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Motion by Holmes, second by Wygant. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Terrific. All right, we'll move on to item 8D, and this is a purchase of a name of a snowblower I cannot pronounce, so there you go. So we'll just move forward with the staff report.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning again, Chair and members of the board. This next item, am I still on?
Yes, you are on.
Okay, yeah, I thought I heard a dial tone. Sorry. So this next item has a few different actions. The first is to approve a budget revision in the fiscal year 1920 final budget to increase expenditure authority by $561,057. The second is authorize the addition of one LaRue P70 snowblower to the master fixed asset list for fiscal year 2019 and 2020, and that's for the purposes of purchase encumbrance. The third is to approve the award of a negotiated purchase order to Snowquip Inc. of West Sacramento for the purchase of the snowblower in the amount of $561,057. And finally, we're asking you to authorize a purchasing manager to take the actions necessary to complete this purchase. This is a little bit different action requested, out of the norm a little bit, but I have to say it's a good cooperative effort between Sierra Garcia and Louise and Fleet Maintenance, Brett Wood and his team in the procurement division, as well as a vendor to work with us to extend 2019 prices for a future purchase. So this action is simply, so I should backtrack a little bit, where the actual expenditure will not take place until December of 20 when we receive this snowblower, but to get on the list for manufacture, this action is necessary right now to get ahead of the game. So this will allow us to have 2 new snowblowers in operation by the time next winter rolls around, and we'll have, and we're also required to get rid of 2 snowblowers due to air pollution regulations. So with this action, we will we'll kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, and have two new pieces of equipment on the road. So with that, I'll turn it over to you for any questions and answer them, hopefully.
Thank you, Kevin. Supervisor Holmes?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. I just wondered what we were going to do with that 72 model. Is there a snowblower museum or something that they go into?
Yeah, sure. And by way of information, I should also add, in the 1920 budget, we already have one snowblower in the process. So this snowblower, subject of this item, it will be the second snowblower. So we'll bring two new in, and what we'll do is we'll put on the surplus auction these 1972 snowblowers, and they're still running and operational. So somebody presumably from out of state will hopefully purchase them, and we'll get a decent price for them.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Euler?
Yeah, just quickly, if you would, Kevin, for folks who are used to snow blowers that they use to clear off their deck, would you please explain why we're spending $500,000 on a snow blower?
Sure. These are dual engine machines that have the ability to blow snow, several hundred feet off the road. These are the same blowers that you see Caltrans using on the interstates, or that you'll see on a airport runway blowing snow off a runway. So this isn't a walk behind snowblower by any stretch of the imagination. These are high-powered dual-engine machines, one engine to actually run the truck, one engine to run the blower, and they're formidable machines. And I wouldn't say that, I mean, they're built one at a time and built to exact precisions and specifications to handle the loads of feet of snow, not inches of snow.
Thank you. I just thought a little perspective was in order.
Right, and our hope is that we'll get to use these
a whole bunch.
A whole lot next winter time versus just in the month of March and April. All right, we'll open this up to public comment, and no comments from the public, so we'll bring it back to the board.
I'd like to move approval of the 4 actions and welcome a new snow blower versus the 1972 model.
All right, we have a motion by Gustafson, second by Holmes, and a roll call vote, please.
Wygant?
Yes.
Holmes?
Yes.
Euler?
Aye.
Gustafson?
Aye.
Gore?
Aye. Thank you, Kevin. All right, item 8E.
Great, thank you very much.
It's the Countywide Capital Improvement Program update, Newcastle Horseshoe Bar and Penryn District.
Good morning, Rich.
Good morning.
Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chairman.
Oh, we can't hear you very well, so hold on. Let's get this closer so we can hear better.
All right, try again.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's all right. We can hear you all right. Thanks.
Okay, good. The action before you today is to adopt a resolution to approve an update to the project cost of the Newcastle Horseshoe Bar Penryn District of the Countywide Capital Improvement Program. The total amount collected by the district and the associated traffic fees will remain the same. In Placer County, we have roadway network capital improvement programs for the unincorporated areas that contain 11 different districts, one of which is the Newcastle Horseshoe Bar Penryn districts. Fees collected in these districts are for programs and projects identified within those specific CIPs. We're proposing to update the Newcastle Horseshoe Bar Penryn CIP to reflect a revision for 2 project costs. The modifications are for signalization at the intersection of Penryn Road and Taylor Road, increasing that total cost from $552,200 to $1.2 million, for an increase of $647,800, while decreasing the cost of the widening and reconstruction of Dick Cook Road curves by a commensurate amount. The increased cost for the signal project is based on bids that were recently received were higher than anticipated just due to the complexity of the project required. And the decrease for the Dick Cook Road project is because the county, we've completed a bridge project there a few years ago. It did some of the shoulder widening, improved some of the curves at that end, and really is the most expensive segment of the roadway for that to be done. And we believe the remaining money in the CIP for that Dick Cook project will be sufficient to match any kind of grant funds that we would need to complete the rest of the shoulder widening and curve realignment. So the total cost for this, the CIP and the cost per dwelling unit equivalent will remain the same. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Looks like there are no questions from board members and no public comment in the queue, so we'll bring it back to the board.
Second.
Move approval by Supervisor Holmes, second by Wygant. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Actually, you're still on, Rich, with item 8F, traffic signal at the intersection of Penryn Road and Taylor Road reimbursement agreement with United Auburn Indian Community.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Again, Richard Moorhead with Public Works. The action I'm requesting now is to approve a reimbursement agreement with the United Auburn Indian Community for a traffic signal at the intersection of Penryn Road and Taylor Road that's included in the Capital Improvement Program and Countywide Traffic Mitigation Fee Program to be constructed as part of the United Auburn Indian Community Tribal School, and authorize the Director of Public Works or designee to sign that agreement. The county approved a minor use permit for the United Auburn Indian Community to serve, it's a school to serve about 1,000 students. There's a tribal education center and a tribal cultural center associated with that. As part of the environmental analysis, there was a existing plus project mitigation identified to signalize the intersection of Taylor and Penryn Road. It's also been included as part of the conditions of approval of that project. The signal at the intersection is regionally beneficial, and the Department of Public Works agrees the improvements are eligible for reimbursement up to the amount included in the Capital Improvement Program for the traffic fee program. The United Auburn Indian Community is they're going to construct that signal, and they're eligible for reimbursement for actual construction costs not to exceed $1.2 million. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Euler, you have a question?
More comment. I just want to say thank you for bringing this very necessary and long overdue project forward.
We would agree.
Great. Any questions? No public comment, so we'll move it back. Motion by Holmes, second by Euler. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
All right, item 9, which is Human Resources, new classification of coroner technician, and we'll bring Kate Sampson on the line. Michelle Beauchamp.
Good morning, Michelle. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Chair, Board, members of the board, Mr. Leopold, Ms. Schwab, Michelle Beauchamp, Assistant Director of Human Resources, here to introduce an ordinance, waive oral reading, and amend the uncodified schedule of classifications and compensation ordinance related to the creation of a new classification of coroner technician. On March 9th, 2020, your board adopted a resolution ratifying the declaration of local health emergency made by the public health officer, dated March 3rd, 2020, related to the coronavirus or COVID-19. On March 19th, 2020, the Human Resources Department was advised by the Sheriff's Office of an urgent need to hire technicians to assist in the morgue. The required technical duties were previously contracted through a private vendor that had provided notice of no longer being available to meet service demands. Due to the critical nature of these services, during the current emergency, Human Resources immediately prepared a classification specification for coroner technician. Consistent with the aforementioned proclamation and in recognition of the urgent need for personnel to perform the specified services, the new classification of coroner technician has been approved by the County Executive Officer rather than the Civil Service Commission. The estimated annual compensation, including salary and benefits for the new classification, is $99,900 annually. Costs associated with hiring coroner technicians will be absorbed within the current budget for the Sheriff's Office. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michelle. It looks like there are no questions from board members and nobody in public comment, so we'll close that and bring that back to the board.
Move approval.
Second. Sorry, can I take off
Motion by Wygant, second by Holmes. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. We will now move to item 10, closed session.
The board will now adjourn again to closed session to consider 4 items of existing litigation. The first item is Clifton Shepherd versus County. I'd like to turn to Supervisor Wygant for this one.
I'll be recusing myself from that.
All right, thank you.
Next item is Human Rights Defense Center versus County. Third, Tahoe Residents United for Safe Transit versus County. Fourth, Center for Biological Diversity versus County, and 1 item of anticipated litigation.
All right, thank you. So we will move to closed session, and then we will reconvene at 1 p.m. for our 1 p.m. and I think we have 2 items after 1 o'clock. All right, thank you.
Oh.
That was really there.
Nice of you to color coordinate, by the way.
All right, welcome back to the Placer County Board of Supervisors meeting April 7th. We are going to move to our 1 o'clock timed item, which is the CEDRA Community Development Block Grant Funding application. Oh, and before I do that, we have to report out for closed session. So let's do that.
The board met in closed session to consider Clifton Shepherd versus County. The board authorized a defense of the named defendant. On Human Rights Defense Center versus County, the board authorized settlement. On Tahoe Residents United for Safe Transit versus County, the board heard a report. No action was requested or taken. Center for Biological Diversity versus County, the board heard a report and the board provided direction. On anticipated litigation, the board authorized the initiation of litigation. That concludes the report out of closed session.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move to item 5, which is the Community Development Resource Agency CDBG funding application, and we're calling our presenter.
Shauna, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay, go ahead.
It's all yours, Shauna. Take
Hello.
it away. Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Well, good afternoon. I'm Shauna Purvines with the Community Development Resource Agency, and the item before you is a request to conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution authorizing the submittal of up to $6,250,000 community development block grant for infrastructure in support of businesses as well as for planning and technical assistance. Previous awards of community development block grant funds have been made to the county for housing assistance, public facilities, public services, planning and technical assistance, and as just for some recent examples, these funds were used for sidewalks in the existing grid area of Kings Beach Town Center and also used in the development of the Hilltop Hotel in Auburn. The approval of this item would also authorize the agency director or his designee to execute any amendments thereto and to sign any required documentations for the grant.
And lastly, if awarded, there is no county match required for the 2019-2020 Community Development Block Grant. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Shauna. It does not look like there are any questions from board members. And we'll open it up to the public. We don't have anybody in the queue. We might just give a few seconds just because I want to be aware of that and wait for a few minutes or a few seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board now that we have conducted a public hearing. All right, we have a motion by Holmes, second by Euler. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Shauna. And then we will move. We will now.
Thank you.
We'll adjourn as the public Placer County Board of Supervisors and convene as the Placer County Housing Authority. And oh, rats! This is the 110 item, and we're at 103. So we might take a short, well, I guess we have to take a short recess and just suspend until 1:10, and then we'll move on with our last item. All right, we will now move to our 110 timed item, which is the Placer County Housing Authority. Housing assistance for very low income, homeless, disabled, and elderly Placer County residents. And we'll get an update from Amanda Sharp. You're on, Amanda.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, that's great. Thank you, Amanda.
I'm Amanda Sharp. I'm the Deputy Director for Health and Human Services and the Director of Human Services, Veteran Services, and today the Housing Authority is the reason I'm here before the board. I'm here to ask action requested for consideration of the following items to secure $3,249,979 in federal funding for the Placer County Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program to provide subsidized housing vouchers for low-income individuals, families, and veterans in Placer County for fiscal year 2021. There are items A, B, and C: conduct a public hearing, adopt the Housing Authority Agency 5-year plan, and adopt a resolution authorizing acceptance of the 5-year plan. This item comes to the board in your role as Placer County Housing Authority annually, and wanted to acknowledge that for 10 years running, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, has recognized our housing authority in Placer County as a high-performing housing authority, earning this year a score of 96% in our Section 8 Management Assessment Program review. So I want to congratulate for the hard work of our high-performing team headed up by our Housing Authority Supervisor, Janelle Martinez. Resulting from our classification as a high-performing agency, we are exempt from the requirement of an annual plan submission. However, we must still conduct public hearing, publish notices, and seek recommendations from our Resident Advisory Board and submit civil rights and other certification documents. And this year, our Housing Authority is required to submit a 5-year plan, which covers updates and changes to our mission goals and objectives, our violence against women requirements, and our certification validating that our plan is consistent with the consolidated and state consolidated plan. Placer County Housing Authority has complied with posting requirements as indicated in your board document packet. The plan before you is submitted with minor updates from our prior 5-year plan. These suggested changes have resulted to date in no input from community or other members during the open comment period. To ensure that regular updates occur and are aligned with requirements, our agency subscribes to an administrative plan format and revision service provided by Nan McKay and Associates. Minor grammatical changes were made, and in addition, a summary is that changes are proposed will help streamline the inspection process, clarify the hardship rules for voucher-eligible participants, clarify our policy on verifying disability criteria and interim re-examination requirements due to the family unit increases in income. The plan also recommends implementation of industry-approved tools for income verification. Our recommendations include a revision in our verification of need for live-in aid section to permit approval by a well-defined group of professionals instead of just doctors or medical professionals. We also revised our policy on informal review process when necessary to make these reviews more accommodating to applicants who are unable to appear in person. Some highlights from our Placer County Housing Authority this year include: we serve 579 very low-income Placer County residents who may be elderly, homeless, veterans, or disabled. Nearly 80% of vouchers are currently used across all voucher programs, with market increase this year and just recently in lease-ups in our VASH program. And we'd like to thank partnership across all divisions in HHS, as well as the Veteran Service Office, which resides under my division, and the VA in securing these increased lease-ups. Placer County Housing Authority does have a waiting list. It is not likely we will open the list to new applicants this year because of the length of the waiting list. At this time, we have 171 active on the list with 12 limited preference referrals. During the next several months, as permitted by program rules, we will review the list especially in light of COVID-19 emergency, we have a goal of connecting with each applicant on the list and removing names of those who are no longer in need of housing according to program rules. And we hope to produce a shorter waiting list for those still in need. We have a number of different types of vouchers that are currently available to assist. A quick definition of those follows, but I wanted to make you aware that in the last 2 years, our Housing Authority has pursued competitive application processes to secure new vouchers. The first series of vouchers we have are VASH vouchers, Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing. The Housing Choice Voucher is the second type. It's a standard voucher formally defined as Section 8. There's a subset of Housing Choice Vouchers called Mainstream Vouchers, and those are for people with at least one non-elderly disabled adult between 18 to 61 in the family. We currently have 14 of those types resulting from a team application in 2018, and they're fully utilized. We submitted an additional application for these mainstream vouchers, and were approved for 20 additional vouchers made through a competitive grant application. That was successful application from the Placer County Housing Authority staff, and we anticipate using all of those by January of 2021. And then, in addition, another area of service we have is the Placer County Housing Authority, along with the all of Placer County HHS, various divisions, partnering with the Mercy Housing Project. We have committed 20 project-based vouchers from our existing allocation to use with the Adult System of Care's MHSA full service partnership customers, and these vouchers will be set aside, and occupancy at the Mercy Project with these vouchers is expected in September of 2021, starting that. Just for information, we are also awaiting application approval, we hope. We're currently in the application status waiting for approval on a program called Family Unification Program, and that would provide some vouchers that are specialized for families where housing is a barrier to reunification, and also a resource for foster youth ages 18 to 24. That application, as I mentioned, is pending, awaiting results, and it is a competitive application for up to 10 additional vouchers. And we are also seeking, as possible on a case-by-case basis, some special vouchers that can be applied for individually for foster youth independence program. In terms of the fiscal impact related to the approval of the agenda items that I'm asking for your board's approval, compliance with the Public Housing Agency plan requirements are necessary for us to continue the receipt of this federal funding in the amount of $3,249,979, with a general fund contribution of no more than $210,892. These budget amounts have been recognized ongoing in our annual fiscal budgets and will continue to be added to upcoming proposed budgets once approved. I have people on Skype that can type answers if I have something I can't answer, but I'm happy to answer or attempt to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Amanda. And just to remind folks, we have convened as the Placer County Housing Authority. It doesn't look like there are any questions from the board and no questions from the public. So we will move back to the item. We have now conducted the public hearing, and I believe Amanda read through all of the items. Yes. All right. So with that,
Second.
a motion from Holmes, second by Gustafson. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries 5-0. We will now adjourn as the Placer County Housing Authority, reconvene as the Placer County Board of Supervisors. And with that, it looks like we've finished all of our business items. We will adjourn to our April 21st meeting, which will be at 9 a.m., not at 1 p.m. on the 21st. And with that, we will adjourn. Thank you, everyone.